Today on episode 110 of Rail Talk, the Breeders' Cup pre-entries are out. So over 200 horses to analyze. We break it all down, all the divisions, all the championships. Cannot wait to get out there to Del Mar in a week and a half. You see, I got my hat, my participant hat. I'm an official participant of the Breeders' Cup, and I'm Joe Bianca, ownership advisor at West Point Thoroughbreds. And John, I'm going to let you take the floor because you made a little bit of a splash just about an hour ago at the sale.
Jonathan Green, general manager of DJ Stable. There goes the inheritance. Yeah, we bought a horse for $850,000, a Candy Ride, out of a Tappet mare, which, Joe, even I was surprised that we went so high on it. Had Len on the phone, which I know is Fazek Tipton's favorite thing to hear. But you guys bought a couple as well, and we'll compare notes, and more importantly, we'll let the horses do the talking next year.
Start the show. The opinions expressed on Rail Talk are those of hosts Joe Bianca and John Green and do not reflect those of anybody we work with or work for. Exciting news from the Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders Association, friend of the show, Toba. We've got the Claiming Crown coming up, and Toba obviously is the spearhead of the Claiming Crown. They want you to know that the eligibility request deadline is this coming Saturday, October 25th. So if you want to get involved, definitely try to get eligible by that deadline. There's a late eligibility request window that's open until November 8th, but definitely get involved sooner rather than later. We're all looking forward to the Claiming Crown. You know how much I love this event. November 15th at Churchill Downs, 8 races, $1.1 million in purses. These are the war horses. These are horses that fill our races from day to day and keep this sport going. They're the horses that can, withstand the rigors of claiming, sometimes running in cold weather months and changing from barn to barn and running at different levels and different tracks against different horses. They have earned their place in this phenomenal event, which gives them the spotlight. And I've said, John told me that they got the new slogan from claim to fame. And I think that that's absolutely perfect. I think well done. Mwah. All the Toba people that were involved in that, because we love this event. And that really sums it up. There's nothing claiming horses just because they're older and they're running, at lower levels, sometimes for claiming tags, doesn't mean they couldn't compete in stakes races. So we get our day of stakes races for those horses. And it's a high quality event from a horse player standpoint, big fields, one after another, and really get to honor the horses that are the meat and potatoes of our racing product. So looking forward to the Claiming Crown on November 15th. Eligibility request deadline is October 25th. Late eligibility requests will be accepted until November 8th. Okay, so this is the big day, before the two big days, because this is Breeders' Cup pre-entry day. We're recording this on Wednesday. Breeders' Cup had their press conference, and they revealed the pre-entries for the 14 races. We're going to go through every single one. We're going to save a little something for the Breeders' Cup preview show next week. The draw is on Monday, and then, of course, the big races are Friday and Saturday, October 31st and November 1st. I'll be out there starting Wednesday at Del Mar, so come say hello if you're going to be out there. Looking forward to it a bunch. This was one of the things I love about the Breeders' Cup, and one of the things that I'm constantly reminded every year is like how big of a deal this is internationally.
Right. Because
there are 207 total pre-entries for this year's Breeders' Cup, 58 from overseas. So you're talking like over 1 in 4 horses that are going to be running in the Breeders' Cup most likely are going to be based either in Europe or Japan. I just love. This is the only event that does this in racing. It's the only event that has successfully brought the world together in a championship weekend. And yeah, do I wish the TV schedule was a little less convoluted? Yeah, absolutely. Do I wish that they had said they're going to cut off CAW bettors with 2 minutes to post like Del Mar did and like Naira did? Yeah, absolutely. I think that was disappointing. Nevertheless, this is a remarkable assembly of horse talent for the 42nd Breeders' Cup. We'll go through it in a little bit more detail, but John, just give me your first blush reaction.
Well, I think you hit on all the key components, Joe, and again, as being on the inside of the Breeders' Cup board, they made conscious decision and enabled strategies to try to entice more and more horses from coming in outside of North America. And the results are there. Like you said, one in four. And I did the math. I took my shoes off and actually did the math. You are correct. It's about 1 in 4, almost to the exact decimal, of horses that are running in the Breeders' Cup.
I don't know about that. I'm pretty sure it's significantly more than 1 in 4. 1 in 4 would be 232, not 207. So
Right. Okay. Well, anyway, like I was trying to give you a compliment, but since you're dashing it away,
the calculator always working, bro. The calculator's always working.
Exactly. And we'll have the Green Group audit the numbers at the end just to ensure that everything was done properly. But anyway, again, we digress as we will do. I was pleased to see the breadth of competition as far as the number of horses that are coming in. I was a little surprised on the other side of the ledger that there are hardly any races that are oversubscribed. And right. I seem to remember, up until even last year where, and I know this just from nitrogen, where we were like biting our fingernails the 3 days or so before entries as to whether or not we'd actually get into the race itself. And then they drew, we were also eligible. We were sweating it again, but I don't remember seeing, maybe there was one race, Joe, that had an overflow right now. But pretty much if you paid the money for the pre-nom, which other stake races are known as just nominations. If you put the money up already, you're pretty much going to get your first choice as to where you're going to run. And we kicked it around a little bit. Should we go ahead and cross-enter nitrogen and of course, nominate nitrogen in both the filly mare turf and the distaff? And we opted just to stick with, hey, we know where we're running her, so let's not play the games. And sure enough, it looks like that there's 14 horses in the distaff that are nominated. We'll see how many actually opt to run, once they look at the PPs and everything. But Joe, there's not one but 2 horses in the distaff prenoms that are currently training in Japan.
There's a lot, a lot of Japanese involvement as well, and that just. Good time to tease. Next week, we're going to have our buddy Andrew Stewart from Arian Pedigrees on, our favorite Kiwi, next week. And he's going to help preview the international runners for the Breeders' Cup, as well as the Melbourne Cup, which is the Tuesday after the Breeders' Cup. So lots more international flavor coming on next week's show. But I noticed the same thing, especially the juvenile and the juvenile fillies.
Yeah.
Those 2 races, like the premier dirt races for 2-year-olds in this country, drew a combined 18 horses.
Right. And
one of the ones in the juvenile fillies has first preference in the fillies turf. So chances are we're going to have a max of 8 horses in the juvenile fillies and 9 in the juvenile. And like in the juvenile, I kind of understand it because Ted Noffey has been so unbelievably dominant and impressive. And then you also have Brandt, who's the big figure horse, stretching out for Bob Baffert. So I kind of get why people aren't going for the juvenile. Why didn't other people do what we did in the juvenile fillies? Right. We're entering Super Corridora, who just had a big maiden win at Santa Anita not this past weekend, the weekend before. She has to work Friday, and if she works well, then we're officially going to enter. But we pre-entered, and we were like worried about getting edged out, and then they were like, no, it didn't oversubscribe. Only 8 horses most likely in that race, and we're super excited for her. She is live. She's going to be a price. She's probably going to be like 12 to 1 or so. So if you are betting, the deal with her is like, her first 2 races were nothing great, and then she broke out last time at Santa Anita. She was always a 2-turn filly. She was just kind of ahead in her development of where the races were carded.
Right.
So she was ready to go opening weekend at Del Mar, but the only race available for her was 5 furlongs. Right. And they had to ride the hair off of her just to like try to let her keep up. And then she ended up running 5th. She ran better second time out, second to Bottle of Rouge, who was in this race, but also that was 6.5, too short for her. So this is a filly that we've been wanting to get 2 turns. We actually entered her in a turf race just to go 2 turns. It ended up not filling. Finally got the opportunity at Santa Anita October 11th, and she ran awesome. Right. She turned back multiple challenges, navigated some traffic, just cantered in. So I think she's live if you're betting. Assuming we go, she's probably going to be 10 to 12 to 1 at least. And we were thrilled to see that the juvenile fillies only had those 9, most likely 8 horses in it. Other race that you have to mention and talk about is the Classic.
Yes.
And where this stacks up in terms of the Breeders' Cup Classics of all time. To me, my favorite, and I think the deepest one, was the 2004 Breeders' Cup at Lone Star, and that was when Ghost Zapper won. I mean, you look at that field, and you had Roses and May, Funny Side, Azeri, Pleasantly Perfect, Perfect Drift. Like those were star horses left and right. And the fact that Ghost Zapper won that race by 4 legs, shows you how freaking awesome he was.
Yep.
But since then, this has got to be the best one I've seen, because you not only have the trio of unbelievable 3-year-old sovereignty and journalism in Baeza, you not only have the 1-2 from last year's Breeders' Cup Classic in Sierra Leone and Fierceness coming in. You also have Mindframe. You also have Forever Young, Antiquarian, who's coming off a grade 1 win. Of course, the Rabbit, Contrary Thinking's in there. I'm sure that'll be no controversy whatsoever. But this is, John, this is where people are going to complain that it's early in the day. Listen, it's not their fault that NBC has college football that they want to show.
Right.
I get it. It sucks to have it in the middle of the day if you're on the West Coast. But if you want anybody to actually see this race, it has to be where it is on the card, which is 325. Anyway, I've been rambling, John, but this Classic is really exciting.
No, the Classic is exciting, and the fact that it is going to be on NBC Sports is also exciting. Joe, this is nothing new. I mean, people are complaining about, hey, it's Halloween, I want to go trick-or-treating with my kids. So do it, whatever.
Right.
The NBC doesn't really give a rat's ass if whether or not your kid gets an extra Tootsie Roll or not. They really don't care. And it's not anti-racing. It's not anti-betting. It's just Notre Dame football is going to, supersede a lot of sports.
Yes.
As far as so again, let's not be crazy about hey, I want to be out there trick or treating with my kids, and I have to make a decision between the Classic. You know what? If you have to make a decision between watching the Distaff or the Classic or taking your kid trick or treating, there's a problem right there anyway that you should be asking yourself.
Also, just watch it on your phone.
Watch it on your phone. Exactly. The kid's not going to know. Come on. For the love of God. Anyway, but yeah, we're gonna. It's not that we're second fiddle to Notre Dame football. It's that everybody is second fiddle to Notre Dame football and the package that they put together, the TV package they put together. That's why Notre Dame is independent still, when they could be making buttloads of money by leeching on to one of these other conferences. Anyway, That being said, I'm really excited about the Classic. We've actually changed our flight so we can be there for the Distaff and the Classic to be able to watch it and then get out of Dodge. That night, because it is such an interesting race to me. Joe, you went over the big 3-year-olds and a couple of the older horses, and I think you glossed over a couple of them to give me a little bit of ammunition. But I love the fact that Sierra Leone and Forever Young are coming back. I love the fact that Todd's running locked in here against Mindframe and the other Rapoli horse as well.
Fierceness.
Thank you. I think that's awesome. I really enjoy the fact that they're putting their money where their mouths are as far as not pre-nominating and possibly running these horses. It's going to be a really great field. You've been especially, on the bandwagon about these 3-year-old colts and how awesome they've run. And you know what? They have a real puncher's chance. What I love is that, in my humble opinion, there's going to be 6 or 7 horses that you can legitimately point to and say, I think this horse can win. So the odds are going to be, really, really, favorable. You can kind of go odd shopping, compared to what you like. And that'll lead us into the CAW conversation, Joe, because there's going to be so much liquidity in the Saturday races, especially, that I think it's going to be less of a situation of, the horse that you like is in the gate at 5-1 and hits the wire first at 3-2. I don't think you're going to have that kind of situation again because of just the amount of money that's going to be poured into betting this race. And again, we talk about it time and time again, when you have big fields like this and across the board talent in these big fields, you're going to be able to at least, dampen the enthusiasm and the importance of CAW monies going into this race.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a nice gesture to say we're going to do the same thing that Del Mar already does. Yeah, I get it. You're not going to have the huge odds plunges that you normally would, but it happens at Keeneland in grade 1 races. So they can move markets in big pools. And I don't know. Are they going to chase away the CAW bettors if they do this? Like they're still going to bet the Breeders' Cup, and they're banking on you still betting the Breeders' Cup despite this, which I will be obviously. But like, yeah, it's to me, honestly, with the way this year has gone, to me, that's the bare minimum that you can do for regular horse players, is to cut them off with 2 minutes to post in the win pool.
Right.
So it's definitely disappointing to see that they did it. But going back to the races. The turf looks phenomenal.
Yep.
The Distaff looks great. And I love that John said they changed their flight to see the Classic. Now, that sounds like, wow, what an ordeal. But let me clue you in on something. When you fly private, all that happens is the guy calls Len and says, hey, Mr. Green, when do you want to leave? And that's how you change your flight.
All right, it's not that easy. We also have to. No, it's not that easy. There's two things that have to happen. One is we have to call the pilot and say we're changing the flight by an extra hour, and then you miss the other important thing is we have to change catering at that point and explain to them that we need to have our cookies heated because it's going to be dessert as opposed to the pre-flight cookies. So don't talk about things you don't know, Joe. That pisses me off more than anything else.
Excuse me, we have a code red. We're going to need brunch or lunch instead of brunch, please. Stat.
Please make sure that the flight attendants are wearing the proper after dinner gloves as opposed to the pre-dinner gloves.
That's great.
Yes.
Oh man, that's a fun flight. I remember, if you're a true fan of the show, you remember 2 years ago when we flew out there and we recorded the show from the plane. If you haven't seen that, you should go back. Yep. That was a fun one.
And if you also remember, Joe hasn't been on the plane since.
Whoops! What did I do wrong?
You're bitching about this. It's so easy. You just have to call the pilot.
I was on the plane for the Arkansas Derby, and the way I remember that is many ways. But one of the ways I remember that is the reason I brought this up was like there was turbulence going into like wherever we were going to fly, and the guy says to Len, "Where would you rather fly? Where do you want to go?" And I'm like, "Damn, man." That is some sweet, sweet setup right there. And the pilot just asked, "Where do you want to go today?"
The best part about the first flight you took with us, and Joe, I love you like a brother, and it's just, and I love busting on you and receiving shit back from you. But we get on the plane, and poor Joe from Brooklyn, who has never been on a flight, let alone a private flight,
stop,
gets on the plane and immediately. First of all, he pushes us all out of the way to get on the plane first. He jumps on the plane, takes a selfie of himself with sitting in the lounger with his feet up on Len's seat.
It doesn't have his name on it. Like you said, I'm from Brooklyn. I don't know that if I'm ever going to get on the private plane again. But thankfully, I was so charming that you let me back on, even though I put my feet up on the king's chair.
Oh my God! Good times. Good times, Joe. We've had some good times aside from this show.
And don't you worry, I'll be back in 36A or whatever the fuck for my flight home. So you can throw up the deuces at me while you guys are flying out. But before we wrap this segment, unless you want to say something else.
Can I make you feel even worse? Can I make you feel even worse?
You could never.
Okay, so we have an extra seat on the plane going out there, and your friend of mine, Samantha Perry's going to take that seat. So why would that make me feel worse?
Because I love Sam.
Yeah, because we have an extra seat on the flight home. So if you wanted to leave right after the Classic, you could have that seat.
Oh, this is legally binding. This is on camera, on microphone.
Yep.
All right.
But we're leaving literally when the Classic is over and official. Boom! You're going to see puffs of smoke where my body used to be.
I'm supposed to take a red eye that night, actually, because we got horses running on Sunday.
Right.
So I'm going to have to see if that's refundable. If it is, I'll take you up on that. Anyway, one more thing I wanted to bring after all this fascinating flight logistics discussion that I'm sure all our listeners are glued to right now. I do want to talk about
our listenership end at exactly 19 minutes, Joe.
Those are the stats. And if not, we'll push them right out the door. Can we talk about the Distaff?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the race that I'm in. Yes.
This is to me, this is the centerpiece. Like, because we also have Intricate Spirit and Vava going, and we'll discuss those as well. But I want to talk about the Distaff. I know they haven't drawn posts yet, but John, what's your reaction? Who do you think you got to get around?
Oh, well, my reaction is I'm so excited to be there and to be considered one of the top, 3 choices in the race, arguably. I think that Seismic Beauty is the horse to beat. But what I love Love with a capital L-U-V, love, is the fact that there's a lot of speed in the race, Joe. There's a lot of speed that's going to go out, hopefully with Seismic Beauty, and make her make a decision. Either they are going to have to go or they are not. And just like Yoda would say, go or go not, or how did he say it? What was it?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Do not. No. Yeah, exactly. And that's what they're going to have to make a decision, because there's going to be a buttload of speed, on their ass or in front of them, depending on how things go in the break. So I'm excited. Look, having a 3-year-old filly to run against older horses is daunting unto itself. No question about it. Trying to beat a filly on her home track, also daunting. The fact that Seismic Beauty basically has run a 95, 104, and 110 buyer numbers, respectively, in her last 3 races, heavy duty ask for our homebred Nitrogen. But we're sending her out there. We feel like that she's at the top of her game right now. She also has a big breeze on Friday or Saturday, depending on weather. I'm happy to see how she does in this race, but she owes us nothing. She's run phenomenally well on the turf, in the dirt, and against some older fillies in the Spinster. And Joe, I would love to be able to say with a straight face that however she does in this race is gravy, but we want to win. Guys, of course. Listeners, I think we're going into this race because we really want to win it. And it would be great for my dad, especially. So if there are any racing gods or any karma that you can give us, positive karma you can give us, despite the fact that we're coming out on a private plane, I'd really appreciate it. So anyway, that's just for you, listener, not nobody else. Nobody else out of our 40,000 people who download the show every week. Or
light your prayer candles. For little Johnny. Exactly. But the other thing, Joe, is that there's, I think, 3 other 3-year-old fillies that are pre-nommed in the race. And, the way that I'm handicapping the 3-year-old filly championship, one of those other 3 fillies would have to win and win dominantly, I think, to surpass us in the voting of my own mind. But there were a couple of horses like Good Cheer, Immersive, Lacara, that I can think of off the top of my head, where if they won the Distaff, where you'd have to say, you know what, tip your hat to them. They beat us in the biggest stage of the year, and they deserve to be considered, ahead of us for the Eclipse. I don't see that in the 3-year-old fillies that are in this race, if I'm being honest. If they win, absolutely they should move up the ranks of where we are. But I think at this point in time in Nitrogen's career, she's proven, she's danced all the dances on 2 different surfaces, and she's proven, what she's worth, and probably one of the top, if not the top 3-year-old fillies, of her crop. What do you think she's got to do to win the title? Run first, second, or third?
I think that she's got the inside track right now, Joe. I think that by running second and losing in a head bob in the Spinster against older mares and doing what she's done all year, I mean, she's literally 2 photos away from being perfect this year. And I feel like that's a pretty good, body of work as far as the other 3-year-olds, because honestly, there's a couple of 3-year-olds. This year's talent of 3-year-olds is very dispersed. There's a couple of 3-year-olds that have won, 2 of the big races out of the year, but there wasn't anybody that you would point to and say, oh yeah, that filly won the Oaks, the Ashland, the Oaks, the Black Eyed Susan, and the Spinster. Like there's nobody that's an obvious pick. And honestly, other than, a day after the Breeders' Cup, Friday, the Future Stars Friday, I think that you can say that about the majority of the Eclipse divisions. That it's very up in the air right now. I mean, 3-year-old Colt of the Year, like that's going to come down to the Classic.
I mean, Sovereignty has a pretty big leg ahead, I think.
Right. But what if Journalism wins?
If Journalism wins the Classic, then he would have a good argument.
What if Baeza wins by 5?
Then he would also have a good argument.
So I think there's a lot of these divisions that are very up in the air, and isn't that what the Breeders' Cup is all about?
Exactly. Yes. It's to settle all that mess, and it's been there's very few divisions where there's like a standout. Like last year, Torpedo Anna was a lock to win the 3-year-old filly, no matter what happened in the Breeders' Cup.
Or Cogburn, who was the sprint. He didn't even run well in the Breeders' Cup, and he still got champion sprinter.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, you got a lot riding on these 14 races, and like I said, we'll break it all down more next week on our Breeders' Cup preview show featuring Andrew Stewart. So we'll go over the individual fields. Draw is Monday, as I mentioned. But yeah, like this is kind of Tom Bellhouse says this at West Point. He's like, everybody loves the Derby. Everybody loves going to the Derby. This is the event for real horse racing lovers and handicappers. Like this is the one where everybody knows the Derby, but if you tell somebody about the Breeders' Cup, they're going to be like, the what? Right. And that sucks. We should have more exposure for it, but there is something cool about it, like being our event and our day to celebrate. That's like just mostly for us.
Yep. Yeah, no question about it. The only people who know about the Breeders' Cup that aren't in our industry are Notre Dame football fans, because they're like, what the hell is this on? I want to watch the kickoff.
Yeah, the biggest Breeders' Cup haters in the world probably are the Notre Dame football fans that missed the first 45 seconds when someone takes a while to load in the gate.
Right, exactly.
Rail Talk is sponsored by Arian Pedigrees. You know our friends at Arian. They're the strongest database for pedigrees and stallions that we have in the world for that purpose. And there's some competition. There's a lot of people who do this. Nobody does it as well or diversifies as well in terms of their products than Arian Pedigrees, talking about race records, sire reports. You can track different horses, leading sires, stallion rosters. Stakes is a huge data center of pedigrees going down 5 dams, links to sales results and racing results. It really is the most in-depth product you can use for this. And it's huge when it comes to 2-year-old racing. We got the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, juvenile turf fillies. You want to know horses that can stretch out, that can take to the grass, and especially as we go into Derby season, who you figuring out your future bets, who can really go 1.25 miles. Try to project that out. This kind of resource is invaluable to that. Go to arion.co.nz, and excited to mention that our buddy Andrew Stewart, who is the stallion manager at Arion, who's going to be on next week to discuss all of the Euros, all of the Australian horses, all of the Japanese horses that are be competing in the Breeders' Cup. He'll give you super, super strong insight. That's just a taste of the insight you can get from Arion. And we're also going to look forward to the Melbourne Cup. And that's obviously one of the biggest races in the entire world that we haven't covered yet, I think, on this show. So looking forward to having Andrew on. But in the meantime, go check out Arion Pedigrees. Learn more about the horses who are competing on the races, on the sport's biggest stages, how they got here, and what kind of cross can get you a horse that can get to that similar stage. Rail Talk is sponsored by Facing Tipton. We got the Kentucky October yearlings going on right now. John made a big splash in DJ Stable by buying that $850,000 year. I mean, it's a tremendous sale, and John putting their money where our mouth is. We talk about all the time about what a good sale this is, and it's great to see the continued success after the amazing, phenomenal summer that Facing Tipton had. So West Point's bought 2 so far. You should be shopping this sale if you're not already. It's a great chance to find yearlings that maybe we're not ready for the summer sale. Still top class, and just a great assortment of horses by all sorts of sires. Also coming up, we got the November sale, November 3rd. Cannot wait for it. It's the only appointment viewing sale of the year for me. Obviously, those tremendous brood mares and those tremendous, a lot of times, really nice weanlings to go for a lot of money as well. So we're looking forward to that. November sale catalog is online right now. And don't forget about the digital sale coming up in December 4th through the 9th. You can still enter up until November 19th at digital.facingtipton.com. Okay, so the day many people dread every year came this past week. The foal crop study, the foal crop data was released from the Jockey Club. Jockey Club expects a 3.4% drop in the foal crop for 2025. By October 13th, 17,103 live foals were reported. Numbers expected to reach 17,300. This is a slight dip from last year's number of 17,700 live foals. And it's not like a huge drop in and of itself, but obviously you have to look at the context. This is now the 19th out of the last 20 years that the foal crop has gone down. And then the only time that it went up in 2015, it was 0.2%. So we're going to say that it's the 20th straight year, basically, that the foal crop has gone down. And, the Blood Horse did a good job breaking it down by state. The biggest drops were Maryland, dropped from 499 live foals in 2024 to just 344 in 2025. 344 to 302. 499 was the mare's bred. 344 to 302. That's a 12.2% drop. Another big drop was Florida from 782 live foals to 700. Wonder if some of that had to do with maybe some of the turmoil around Gulfstream Park.
No question.
I hope that rebounds, assuming that we're able to, stave that off and find an alternative for Florida racing. New York was up 672 to 704, so that's like mildly encouraging. But John, you have more insight on this as a breeder. What's your reaction to the latest foal crop numbers?
Well, the 2 decade straight decline in number of foals is obviously concerning. And you can say maybe 15 years ago there were too many foals that were being born, and that now with track closures and all the other things that are contracting the industry, that it's being seen through the number of foals produced every year. You can certainly make that argument. Like any economic analysis, there's supply and demand, and you can see there's a great demand for foals right now. And is it because of the artificial bumping of tax benefits? Probably. That's part of the reason why. The economy is strong. People are willing to invest in secondary industries, non-primary industries, like horse racing now. So there's a lot of factors that are going into why I think that you may have a higher percentage of foals or higher number of foals being born 25 into 26. Joe, there were just simply too many foals being born. There were too many stallions that were out there. There were too many mares that were out there, and the market corrected itself. And I'm hoping that now we're not going to hit year 20 or 21 of straight decline in foal crops. I think the other things that you're noticing on a micro level, on a more regional level, is just the importance of like one good stallion. And Bucaro went from Florida to New York and basically took like 100 and something mares with him in essence, where, those mares were being bred to him when he was in Florida, and he went to New York and bred to, I think it was like 190 mares last year.
Wow.
So basically every mare with a heartbeat in New York was being bred to like Central Banker or Bucaro. But it shows you on the regional level the importance of like one popular stallion, how that can make a huge difference in the numbers. And I think we'll call it the Bucaro tipping, okay, as it were. As to why those two states were changed. But you hit the nail on the head. As far as Florida, there was, I know from talking to David O'Farrell at Ocala Stud, there were a lot of people that were scared off of breeding to Florida stallions and or keeping their mares in Florida to have Florida breds when the specter of decoupling and not having year-round racing in Florida was preeminent. I mean, it almost happened, as our listeners know, from our shows. Joe, you and I brought up this isn't necessarily directly on topic, but you and I brought up a number of months ago artificial insemination and the importance of it and why it would make things safer, cleaner, better for the industry. And look no further than like Pennsylvania, that 440 mares were bred and they had 220 mares. Now I don't have your math mind, but that's basically 50%. Okay, as far as a fertility and live foal rate. And Indiana was like a third overall. They had 404 mares and 178 of them, had live foals. So there's definitely something missing, in some of these states. And you can say the same thing about New Mexico and even Canada and Louisiana, where there's something being lost in. And we'll have to do a deeper dive. But were these mares going to Kentucky being bred once or twice? and then shipping out of Kentucky to their home states and lost the pregnancy, at some point in time, or didn't get pregnant because it was just too damn expensive to keep shuttling mares back and forth from your home base to Kentucky. I'm sure that was part of it. And not that this is the time or day to continue to talk about artificial insemination, but if it means that we're going to have more live foals and that people want to have those foals, okay, then scientifically there's a better way to do it than the current system that we have. So I think that's another topic for another day, another conversation that we should be having again, because the first time we had it, I think we started talking about it, started getting some major traction, and then we started talking about like what was going on in Florida, and the sky was falling, and there was a highs issue, and then there was a bunch of stuff that kind of like knocked us off track. But artificial insemination may be something that can help bolster the numbers of at least having live foals, in their respective states.
Yeah, I mean, we did broach that topic. We weren't able to really drill down on it, but that's something I want to definitely discuss in detail more and more. I mean, as we've said, like when you talk to people who are outside of the racing and breeding world, they're stunned that we don't do artificial insemination, that there's actually a physical breeding every single time. So I think that's, and especially, if you want to get the live foal percentage higher, John, you've talked about like the logistical problem of having to ship mares back and forth, and how that can affect the pregnancy and all that stuff. Yeah, it's definitely something worth talking about more. One other thing that I read that made me think it was a typo, I had to read it like 3 or 4 times from the Blood Horse article. It says the number of 2024 stallions is down 6.9%. That sounds like a lot. But then it says from the 1,181 reported for 2023 at this time last year. What? There are almost 1,200 stallions in this country? That is absolutely staggering to me. You want to talk about a glut where there's more supply than demand. We talk a lot of times about the too many graded stakes and stakes races and all that stuff. What, John, why on earth are there almost 1,200 stallions? That is a staggering number.
Well, but to be fair, almost 200 of them, it's like 190 something. So we're going to round up and say 200 of them were bred to one mare during the course of the year. So
still, even if you subtract those, you're talking 1,000 stallions.
Yeah. No, that's true. There's 1,000. I mean, I didn't do a deeper dive as far as like how many were less than 5 mares that were bred, but I think that's a legitimate, absolutely legitimate point. The other concern I think I have, Joe, is that if you took the horses that were bred to more than 150 mares, okay, it's only 50 stallions, literally exactly 50 stallions. Caracaro was 151 mares bred in 2024, and he was the 50th most popular stallion as far as number of horses. So I think that's to me, that's a bigger concern, because it represents a much higher percentage of the overall foals that are being born. But again, those are conversations that we've had, and I was firmly against in the beginning, the 140 mare rule. I mean, I was ready to die on that hill, and genetically it didn't make sense. It was kind of an arbitrary number in the sense that they basically took the science from the standardbred industry, which is 140, and adapted that to the thoroughbred industry. There were a lot of things that I think weren't a great argument to make out of the 140. But what I'm seeing is that you can still have a free market situation and limit the number of mares that a stallion is bred. I don't think 140 is the number, but whatever the number is, you can still work that out and still have a free market system, because the ones that people want to breed to, if the magic number is 200 and they want one of their mares to be bred to Justify, and they want it to be one of the 200 and not one of the 85 that get left out, maybe they're willing to spend more than the 250 stud fee at that point, and that makes up the difference between what is lost in the current system compared to if it's a 200 mare cap. And then there's a trickle down effect. Not that those stallions who are being bred to 1 or 2 mares are going to see any of those mare population, but you're going to start seeing stallions that are being bred to 80 to 100 mares, maybe in their 3rd or 4th year, which is when they really need to have the more populous number of mares. Maybe there is a trickle down effect to those stallions, and where you give them a chance, to make it. And it's not just, if you don't have a superstar in crop one, you're dead on arrival.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the other thing. And it just, I think there needs to be like more of a middle class in the stallion market.
Right.
Like it's either the big shiny objects or a hot first crop stallion, or pretty much everybody forgets about you. Like, it's just remarkable to me. And I appreciate the context, but 1,180 still seems like a big number, even with the context you gave me. The fact that we don't have a more of a depth in the stallion market,
right,
outside of the state bred programs, I think is indicative that there does need to be some kind of readjustment of the way that we do business.
Right.
If 140 isn't that number, then that's fine. But yeah, I mean, I just wonder how could a business has 1,180 stallions be like so quick to pull the plug on every single one? You know what I mean? There's got to be a home for a lot of them if have this kind of infrastructure. This is the kind of conversation that like you honestly could not have on a lot of podcasts. It's never a popular thing to say there should be fewer stallions, but yeah, it definitely I think we can all agree to some extent it is a market that needs a little adjustment, a little tinkering. I just think the current model is unsustainable in a lot of different ways.
And Joe, is it true that if we start to send the sperm samples via FedEx, frozen via FedEx, that they're going to be known as spermsicles? Is that what you're opting? Is that what you're throwing out there?
I mean, a good name for a stallion, spermsicle. It's like the spermsicle steaks.
You just see like the ice cream truck coming by. I'll have a strawberry shortcake, a chocolate eclair.
We are going to treat this topic with the utmost respect, reverence, and seriousness when we get down to the nitty gritty of artificial insemination. That's our guarantee, our promise to you.
Our stamp.
There'll be no funny business or shenanigans going on while we discuss this.
Shenanigans would be a great name for a horse.
That is a good name. One other thing I want to talk about
one of the bluest blue head mares ever. Yeah, go ahead.
Can we fit this into a segment, please, as well? Because this is from our old friend Bill Finley at the TV. I hate that I say that all the time, and it makes me sound like I'm calling him old. Bill is old, but I mean that in our past friend at TDN, and we love Bill. Like, in all seriousness, you remember I used to bust Bill's balls all the time, and I don't talk to him as much as I do anymore. But I still maintain that he is the best turf rider we have going right now. And that's a hat tip to Bill Finley. There's so many things that he writes that I'm like, oh shit, that's a good idea. Let's talk about that.
Yep.
One of them is his article from Sunday that said that the title is "Give the Equibase Rating System a Chance." So basically, Santa Anita, and we talked about this at one point on the show, but Santa Anita is going to introduce basically a pilot program for coupling horses and grouping horses in rating systems, and just having that be the race. Now, this is, to anybody, our overseas listeners, they're like, yeah, no shit. Like, what was like, it seems like that revolutionary, like, especially in Australia, it's pretty much all class rating system after the group stakes. This is something we haven't tried in America before. And I think there's two reasons. There's two thrusts to this program. And one of them, shout out to Chance Moquette, who I think we should have on the show at one point. He was one of the people that was behind this effort to begin with. The first thing is to have better field size and have more opportunities for horses to run at the lower level. Because right now, if you have an allowance horse, I mean, pretty much any horse, but especially an allowance horse, you got to wait and wait and wait and wait for them to write that race, especially if they have like 2-3 wins. You start getting into the 3X, 4X. Like, unless you're in a graded stake, you got nowhere to run. Mm-hmm. And what this ratings like caste system kind of does is make races for horses that are at a certain level that would not necessarily get those races to go in the allowance ranks. The second thrust and the second kind of idea behind this is not to have as many claiming races. And claiming races are also something that are not common overseas. I mean, there's some in Europe, but in general, it's not usually a thing. And I think we can all agree that claiming races are they're great, and you got the Claiming Crown coming up, and I love that they fill the fields. But on a day-to-day basis, trading older horses for 10, 12, 15,000, $20,000 is not the safest, not the most intrinsically I guess clean way to conduct business in racing. And I think that there is a place for the claiming game, because not everybody can go to the sales and spend $1 bajillion, and even the cheaper horses at the sales, they take a lot of training, and it's important to have that ability to get a turnkey horse, which you can also get in the digital sales, but a turnkey horse on the racetrack that you can just move from one barn to the next, maybe find a little something that was bugging them, and then get them to improve. Unfortunately, a lot of times people have taken advantage of that system over the years, and it's led to not exactly the safest or I think the most clean way for horses to move back and forth. I think it's a traumatic thing for horses to have to move from barn to barn to barn to barn. And not everybody at that barn is going to know what the horse needs from the previous barn, whether it's a medication or a certain kind of therapeutic thing or whatever it is, training method. I think in general, it's better to have horses staying in the same hands, with some exceptions for claiming races. So I think that's another possible benefit of it. John, where are you at on this? You guys obviously have the ability to race at the highest levels, but you run plenty of horses and allowances and some claimers too. Is this something that you'd welcome?
I think any entrepreneurial, answer or option that's out there to help better utilize the horse population that we have is an improvement. I think you bring up a very good point from the horse's standpoint about whether or not it's going to be better, safer, cleaner, and just an overall more positive race record for the horse if he's not constantly changing barns every 3 months or so. Because there's people involved, and the people that are loving and caring for this horse and know its idiosyncrasies and know if it likes hot mash versus not, if it, needs to have its feet wrapped, if it needs to, have a chiropractor come every 6 or 8 weeks. Like, they know what the horse's needs are better than if you're constantly trading horses and if it's a revolving door. And what you see on a lot of these racetracks, and Joe, you know this better than I do from the handicapping standpoint, you see usually it's a couple of trainers that take advantage of the claiming ranks at their respective racetracks, where they're claiming horses for a certain amount of money. They're waiting the approximate number of days. They're dropping them in for what they're allowed to do, winning the race, having the horse get claimed, and then they net out a profit, and the horse goes to a different barn, and then it's rinse and repeat. And sometimes that horse gets caught up in a downward cycle until like it's no longer winning at those races. So I think from the horse's standpoint, it's best if they stay in place. You mentioned another very good point, which is a lot of people don't have the knowledge, the availability, or the money to go to a yearling or 2-year-old sale and try to buy these horses. So what's our only other avenue in order to be able to be into the horse business? Partnerships, which are a good option, or claiming. So it's limiting in that sense. Joe, I think Toba came out with a stat that showed that I think it was 5% of all races are stake races. Okay, which means 95% aren't. Now, you can probably take that 95%. Again, now I'm guessing. You can take that 95% and you can say half of that 95% are allowance, starters, maiden special weight races, et cetera. And the other half, though, so maybe roughly 40% of all the races that are out there are claiming races. So it's a big percentage of our horse population that are being affected. Do I personally like or care about the number system that they have set up and everything like that? To me, that's not as important. What's important is that it's giving the racing offices and the trainers and the owners another tool or another option to utilize and run their horses in a race that otherwise they would have been exposing the horse to potentially get claimed, and no longer be a part of their barn. And again, in a shrinking pool of inventory, where are people going to have the ability to get a horse and have an immediate return on their investment, possibly, of claiming a horse, keeping it for a while, and then ultimately deciding what to do with it at that point?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I think. I think it should be like a hybrid system. There definitely should still be claiming races. I think we can lower the floor at a lot of tracks. I don't think we should be running 4,000, 5,000 claimers anywhere in America.
Right. So
But
you mean raise the floor, raise the floor.
excuse me, yeah, raise the floor.
Yep.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. Yep.
I don't think 10,000. I think 10,000 is a reasonable number
Right.
to have as the bottom level all across the country, such as is feasible. But yeah, I think it's, in the same way that it's good to have horses available for people to bring into their barns to succeed with. It's similar to your point. It's also valuable to have horses that stick around in people's barns that you don't have to risk for a tag. And that's an issue that we run into with West Point, sometimes because, it's, if a horse can't compete at the stakes level and the allowances don't fill, or maybe they can win a maiden race, but they can't quite, cross that 1X or 2X level, what are you going to do? You got to stick the horse in for a tag. And, West Point unfortunately gets claimed off of a lot. I think one of the main reasons is that everybody knows we don't run hurt horses.
Right.
We run sound horses. So I think most people follow us around and will put in a claim slip when they otherwise wouldn't have. And that's not a guarantee in a lot of claiming races. So we've had partners who are like, it kind of sucks. I got like 2-3 races. And then because the horse couldn't win an allowance, we had to put him in for a tag and someone got claimed him. And that's it.
Right.
That's all I got from my investment. So I think that there are a lot of people who have a lot of horses that are not superstars, but are okay enough that you don't want to risk them for a tag.
Right.
And I think that that's where this fits in. And anything, like you said, anything that increases field size and competitiveness of races. I think of the Aqueduct winter meet. Now, hopefully things will get better at Belmont when they have the synthetic and we'll have fuller fields. But the Aqueduct winter meet is pitiful. It is an awful, unbettable product. And I like to support New York racing, but I'd be crazy to be betting those cards in the winter. And I think that something like this, where you have more options for a smaller horse population, can help keep horses running and then keep horses, it's in a rhythm where they can run 5-6 times a meet instead of waiting 4-6 weeks for a race to go.
Right. Well, and the key component from this entire show has been, if you want to run in a place with a smaller field, run in one of the Breeders' Cup races, because there's not a full field there. See how we went full circle there, audience? Hey, Joe, can I mention one other thing about our intrepid reporter friend, Bill Finley?
Yes.
Okay, because aside from the article that you mentioned, he actually published an article this afternoon. Now it's going to sound like the Bill Finley show this afternoon. Talking about our beloved Monmouth Park and the fact that Monmouth Park, this was in the TDN, Monmouth Park's 2025 meet ended September 14th, but almost 40 days later, horsemen are still looking to get paid. 40 days. That's 7 weeks or 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Now, Dennis Drazen is chairman, CEO of Derby Development and operator of Monmouth Park. He actually sat in for the interview. He actually did respond to Bill's inquiry, which I give him a tip of the cap, because a lot of people would have just hit and been like, screw them but to Dennis's credit, he actually not only, responded to Bill's inquiry, but also gave a couple of quotes. And let me just read, a couple of them verbatim. This is from Dennis Drazen, CEO of Derby Development, the operator of Monmouth Park, who vows that the money will be available shortly. Quote, "The process with purses is that we collect money from account wagering, live handle, and our OTWs. We do 7-day reports and send them to the state, and they have to reconcile all the numbers. Then they send us back the money. I think we sent them money again last Friday." I'm assuming that means with regard to the end users, the trainers and the owners. "We're waiting to get more money from them, and we will pay purses. There should be no concern whatsoever that purses won't get paid." Drazen estimated that it will be, quote, 2 to 3 weeks since the money was received from the state to fund the purse account. And then Bill goes on to talk about how a couple of New Jersey horsemen who spoke on the condition of anonymity said that they've been waiting for more than 7 weeks for their money, which is where they were coming up with the 40 days. Okay. In addition, people now that's one reason why they haven't gotten paid the money, because the state hasn't paid the track, and that money hasn't been dispersed. I understand that argument. I understand that discussion, and we have purse monies of our own that are still sitting in limbo at Monmouth Park, but I understand the system and the process. Okay. Here's where I think it goes off the rails a little bit. In addition, people who have had horses claimed off them at the end of the meet have not been able to withdraw money from their accounts. With New Jersey horsemen about to scatter across the country, this is from Bill Finley's article, for the winter, some are saying that money is essential to pay for costs of shipping and reestablishing themselves on a new track. That's something that I don't think falls under the state hasn't paid us their subsidy yet, and therefore we haven't had money to pay for purses. That goes into if monies have been injected into the system, which you have to do, Joe, in order to claim a horse. You have to take certified funds, transfer them over to your to your horseman's account at Monmouth, and then you utilize that to claim a horse. If you're unsuccessful in claiming the horse, or if a horse gets claimed off of you, that money should not be encumbered, because that money was certified funds going in, stayed there, basically went from one account to another. So it went from your right pocket of Monmouth Park to your left pocket of Monmouth Park. And therefore, those monies should be cleared.
Rail Talk is sponsored by Epic Insurance Brokers, one of the nation's top retail insurance brokers, providing expertise across key lines of insurance like property and casualty, employee benefits, and unique specialty insurance. Our brother, Chris Moore, leads Epic's equine specialty practice. You see him at the sales, you see him at the races. He's got horses himself. This is his passion. He lives and breathes this game. He is a certified racing nerd. I have certified him as a racing nerd myself, as one of us, and you'll see as well. Yearling season is wrapping up. If you buy yearlings and you got a nice group of horses and did not review the ins and outs of your insurance program, you got to fix that ASAP. Give Chris a call or shoot him a text at 317-650-4519. Like the Green Group, Chris guarantees he'll bring you value by reviewing all of your equine business insurance policies, getting that house in order. And it's a necessity, especially if you're dealing with really, really nice, prestigious horses. So give Chris a call, give him a shout at that number. And that leads us to this week's Epic
Performance of the Week.
This week's Epic Performance of the Week, we go to the Sunshine State in Florida, and a very, very nice 2-year-old filly named Mythical, who, hot take, pound for pound, might be the most talented 2-year-old filly in the country. She's not running in the Breeders' Cup. She probably is a sprinter, maybe a mile max, but that doesn't mean she's not incredibly fast. John, you put this on my radar. Tell me about it.
Well, this filly Mythical is now 4 of 5, Joe, and she won the $200,000 Florida Sire Stakes with ease. Was up by 6 lengths at the top of the stretch, improved to winning by almost 13 lengths. The St. Patrick's Day filly, homebred of Arundel, our friends of the show, Arundel, the Cohens, very nice people. And they're homebred, like we said, Mythical, who has now won 4 of 5, including this Sire stake, the Adirondack Grade 3, the Tremont, and a maiden special weight race, right in her home state of Florida at Gulfstream Park. The only time she stubbed her toe, Joe, was in the spinaway, and a lot of horses did it that day, the way that race turned out. But the Florida-bred Mythical is our Epic Performance of the Week.
Rail Talk is sponsored by the Green Group, the #1 accounting firm in the horse business. No other CPA firm knows the horse industry like they do. Len and DJ Stable own over 200 horses, won over 2,600 races, and you got a chance to get your hands on some of those horses coming up at the strategic reduction at the November sale. But before that, obviously got nitrogen in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. A lot of exciting things, that Len and the Green Group can do for you for your 2025 taxes, especially since there's a complimentary, confidential, half-hour consultation in it for you. Yes, just you, listener or viewer of Rail Talk. If you call Len up, and what's that number, Michael Agresta?
732-634-5100. Green Group, 732.
Or go to greenco.com. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Len. You don't have to take it from me. Listen to another satisfied customer of the Green Group, Niall Brennan, one of the best consigners, 2-year-old consigners in the biz, talk about how Len has helped his operation.
I remember, it's going back probably 15 years ago. My bookkeeper in the office we finished our taxes, and she was like, gosh, a lot of this is getting, I'm not so sure about some of this. And I said, well, let me call Len. And I called Len and said, my bookkeeper has some kind of queries or questions about these tax returns and that, Len. And he explained it, and he said what he had done and how, and some of the advantages that could be taken at the time. And he just said, but the bottom line is, Niall, that you can be sure at the bottom of that tax return, there's two signatures, yours and mine. So you can be sure that you're getting the best advice and we are doing it properly. And I said, Len, that's good enough for me. I've never questioned anything that he's advised me to do since. But Len and his son John have so much experience in the business world, but also in the equine industry. They have so much experience that they can relate to people. It just gives them a huge leg up in the industry from a tax perspective. I would highly recommend the Green Group.
Thank you, Niall, and thank you, Len and the Green Group. Best of luck at the Breeders' Cup. Looking forward to seeing everybody out there. They really will take care of you. Call them up, 732-634-5100, or go to greenco.com. Don't delay. Len's already probably working on people's 2025 taxes. You want to get in that queue, and you can do it with no risk, no downside if you're a listener of Rail Talk. All right, so a couple milestones over the weekend. Some personal, which we'll get to, and some on the racetrack, which we'll start with. Steve Asmussen won his 11,000th race, career race, last weekend at Remington. I mean, he's just so far ahead of everybody else. Like I don't know, what's a good stat? Oh, he's like the LeBron scoring, career scoring list right now, where LeBron went to the front and he's just going to keep extending, and nobody for a long, long time is going to catch him. That's kind of what this is with Steve Asmussen now, because he obviously took the North American lead a couple of summers ago, last summer or the summer before. Now he's got 11,000. I think one thing that's impressive about Steve's operation is just how many horses he has and how he's able to balance it from so many different tracks and still be able to speak intelligently on all of them. And he's obviously had success at the highest levels of the game too, but you don't get to 11,000 wins with just grade one and graded stakes victories. It takes running a lot of horses in a lot of different spots, being sharp with spotting them, and, not being too big to still race at Remington Park, Right.
Yeah, and I think, the statistics are amazing, Joe. Career-wise, 11,000 victories, which is amazing. He's going to have almost 2,000 starts this year. 2,000 starts this year from 500 starters. So that's roughly four starts per horse, which doesn't sound like a lot per horse, but he gets horses claimed away from him all the time. He's got babies that have run a couple of times, but it's amazing. And he is roughly at $21 million in purse earnings this year already. And again, these are all pre-Breeders' Cup numbers.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a guy who has like an encyclopedic knowledge of his horses. To wit, we bought a filly today at Facek October by Jackie's Warrior. We'd had a bunch of Jackie's Warrior on our short list, throughout the first yearling crowd. And he not only trained Jackie's Warrior, he trained the dam too. And he can tell you about Jackie's Warrior's races and her races. Wow. So that's definitely interesting. And, if any West Point partners are listening, you should get in on that filly. She's pretty. So I just love that, how he manages to have such like a marrow deep knowledge of his horses at pretty much every level. And he's got Eric and Keith who are riding now, and especially Keith winning at some big tracks. So he's going to have a legacy of guys who are going to ride probably for a while, and then maybe will become trainers later on in life. So it's not just him. Like, that name, it's obviously a name that's lived on in racing for a long time, but especially now with Eric and Keith, I think it's going to live on for the next 40, 50, 60 years. So yeah, that was a big accomplishment. And John, there's another big accomplishment that was a little bit closer to your heart this past weekend.
Near and dear to us. Thank you. Two-time Hall of Fame trainer Mark Casse eclipsed a record for him of $20 million in purse earnings this year. $20 million in purse earnings for Mark E. Casse, and I couldn't be happier for him. It's in a lifetime of achievements. This is a noteworthy accomplishment of $20 million in earnings. And again, Joe, this is before the Breeders' Cup. So he still has 2 full months, including the Breeders' Cup races, a couple of Breeders' Cup entries to add on to that or pad that already incredible number. Joe, do you know the other 2 trainers who currently have more than $20 million in purse earnings in this calendar year.
Well, you just told me one, Steve Asmussen.
We'll give you one. We'll see if you were listening to yourself. Very good. That's one.
I always listen to you.
No, you said that actually. So you listened to yourself, which is good.
Time.
I'll give you an A, B, or C. Is it Chad Brown, Brad Cox, or Todd Pletcher?
I want to say the Chadster.
You want to try again?
Fletcher? Wow, third out of three.
Brad Cox has almost $25 million.
Wow. I feel like it had been kind of a down year for him.
It is a down year. He only has $25 million, and he's only winning at a 25% clip. but he averages, this is all according to Equibase, he averages $28,000 per start. Brad Cox does. He has $25 million. Steve Asmussen, as you mentioned, is second with $20.8 million in earnings. And then Mark Cassie with $20 million. Chadster, as you like to call him, Chad Brown, has $19.9 million.
Oh, what a loser.
He is on the precipice of getting $20 million.
No broke boys. Only $19.9 million.
I know.
How could we survive?
We'll start a collection. For those trainers. Todd Pletcher's next with fifth. Safi Joseph sixth. Bill Mott, Mike Maker, Brendan Walsh, and Kenny McPeak round out the top 10. Which ranges from, like I said, $25 million in purse earnings, Brad Cox, to Kenny McPeak has $11 million in purse earnings, which is pretty incredible unto itself. But it's amazing the gap, the chasm, as it were, between first and 10th.
You mean the chasm?
Or the chasm, depending on how you say it. I'm Jewish, so we put a lot of H's in things.
A lot of chutzpah. Chasm.
That's right. But Mark Cassie.
Yeah, I was going to say, we got distracted. Let's talk about Mark.
Go back to Mark.
First of all,
well, before you even ask the question, more importantly, yes, it was with the DJ horse that
I'm sure it was.
So
and it was with Ready to Jam.
Ready to Jam, who won
Autumn Days on Sunday. I remember because we were in the race with Don't Look Back at All, and we ran last. But she's had a great career, and she's going in November, so we're still proud of her.
But yes, Ready to Jam, who hadn't won in since July of 2024, a lot of seconds. For Ready to Jam, a filly, that More Than Ready filly that we own with Gary Barber. And that was her swan song for us. I'm sure she still has a lot of tread on her tire, but she is going to the November sale and will be part of the, dare I say, headlining the DJ Reduction coming up in the first week of November at Keeneland. So congratulations to us, of course. Congratulations to Mark Cassie for eclipsing $20 million in purse earnings. And congratulations to Steve Asmussen for getting his 11,000th career victory.
I'm so glad we eventually found our way around to literal self-congratulation on this show. We danced around it for many, many episodes, several years now, and we finally got the words "congratulations to us" out of John's mouth. That's fucking excellent. That's so good. That's like the final boss of John talking about himself. Congratulations to us. He finally said it.
Yeah, to us meaning me and my ego, both of us.
And Len.
Oh,
Don't forget about Len.
Too. Yeah, I guess
it's mainly Len.
I guess.
But yeah, that was a nice win. And one of the things I love about Mark is he's one of these guys. Asmussen's the same way, that has not lost the passion for doing this, despite how long they've been doing it. It takes a lot to do this for years, for decades. And not really have any days off.
No.
There's just not many days off as a horseman. It really is something that's like a 7-day-a-week job, and to still be doing it at the elite level. And we've experienced it with West Point with Cassie's horses this year. They almost all have been running their eyeballs out.
Yeah.
We're going to run on Friday a very live horse named Counting Stars in the Myrtlewood with Mark. He's thought a lot about her from the jump, but so it's been an unbelievable year for the Cassie barn, and they deserve it. Not only Mark, but his assistants too. Shane and Amanda and Alan and those people, they do a terrific job managing a very, very large stable. Same with Asmussen. You need a lineup of great assistants, so it's not just the name on the program. Shout out to everybody at the Cassie barn that makes it go. All right, one last thing we want to touch on, and I'm hoping we have some footage and photos now that I say this. But our buddy, our excellent associate producer Julia Agresta got married over the weekend. We talked about it last last week, and we were just so happy for her and her new husband, Dylan. I guess that's why she took today off. Like,
how dare she?
You can't get back to work 3 days later. Like, all right, you had to go right on your honeymoon. But no, we were so happy for them, and it looked like a beautiful wedding with great people, and Julia doing what she does best, which is singing karaoke. And she does a lot of things well, but the singing karaoke is what she puts her heart and soul into the most of anything I've seen, and with good reason. She kicks ass at it. So that was a beautiful, beautiful day. Shout out to Nathan and Patty who made the trip down there. John and I couldn't make it, but we're glad that we had the Rail Talk family represented at the wedding. So major shout out to Julia and Dylan and their families. Congratulations, guys. So excited for Julia's sarcastic quips because she can't take any affection when she comes back and watches this. Rail Talk is sponsored by TaylorMade. You've already heard us talk about their excellence in the sales ring. They're killing it at the Face of October sale, at a huge Keeneland September sale as well. You know, it's just the proof is in the pudding. They're the leading consignor in most of these sales, not just on the yearlings, but they do digital sales, horses of racing age, broodmares, everything you could look for. There's too many smart people in this business that trust them with their assets that, you know, it's too many to be. 9 out of 10 dentists cannot be wrong. And John and Len are one of those expert dentists that picks TaylorMade to put their horses through the ring. And it really is a great partnership, and TaylorMade can do the same thing for you. But today, we're going to talk exclusively with the Stallion roster because we wanted to mention this in the bulk of the show, but sometimes we just get to yapping back and forth and we never get around to some of the things we want to talk about beforehand. It's a little peek behind the curtain for you if you couldn't tell. We're going to talk about that not this time, because on Saturday's Grade 3 Bryan Station Stakes at Keeneland, which is a $600,000 purse, by the way, there are 7 horses by not this time in the 15 horses, but only 12 are going to run. So basically 7 out of the 12 are by not this time, obviously the king daddy of the TaylorMade Stallion roster. And John, I've never seen anything like this before.
I can't
as many awesome Into Mischiefs and Tappets as there have been. I've never seen a race with this field size that has more than half of the horses by one stallion.
Joe, I don't remember regional stake races where,
right,
where you see like 7 of the same stallion. You see 7 awesome slews in a Florida bred stallion stake race that they just had this weekend. That doesn't happen. Right. So the fact that you have 7 not this times in graded company in the same race is crazy at Keeneland. And it goes, Macero, who finished second in the Old Dominion Derby, to Golden Afternoon, who just lost the Franklin Simpson, the Grade 1, the troubleshooting, Antisocial, who ran third in the Secretariat, troubleshooting, the aforementioned troubleshooting we mentioned. Final Gambit, who is ran 4th in the Kentucky Derby. Our own horse, Dream On, who won the Penn Mile and has been knocking at the door on all these other races. And the list goes on and on and on. And that is not hyperbole, Joe. 7, count them, 7 horses in this weekend's Grade 3 Bryan Station.
All right, so that's going to do it for episode 110 of Rail Talk. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you to my co-pilot, John Green, our associate producers, Nathan Wilkinson, who's solo today, and I guess our other associate producer, Julia Agresta, deserves a couple days off, and our producer, Patty Wolf, our emeritus producer, who also is not here today, but we love you all. Appreciate everything you do for this show. Just as a blanket statement, this show could not happen without our awesome production staff. So you should thank them too in the comments, as we thank you, dear viewer and dear listener, for tuning in. We'll see you next week back here on Rail Talk. Don't forget to subscribe. See ya.